Good morning, Tommy.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Awesome. I am so excited that you're here today. You come highly recommended. I am going to kind of pitch a little bit about. We're going to talk probably about our mutual friend Bill a lot. So if you haven't seen Bill's episode on our podcast, check it out. He's the first one. So if you want to know who Bill is, we talk about him a little bit. Just reference Bill in the first episode of this podcast.
That's right. 5 stars. Highly recommend.
Bill is a Nashville staple, in my opinion.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Guys, I am joined today by Stacy Kinder.
Thank you.
Stacy is an entertainment sports marketing veteran. She has expertise in content creation, strategic event presentation, and marketing management. She has
reading over my LinkedIn profile. Please message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect.
Absolutely. She has over a decade of career development in creating content, branding, experiential marketing, strategic management, and a diverse collection of projects and events. She's got a very impressive resume, and I was really excited when I was reading over this. You started off in sports marketing and game day entertainment, and I don't know if you were coming out of college or if you just went straight into it, because you were a cheerleader as well.
Yeah. So, I'm a dancer performer at heart, and I went to the University of Virginia after it was made clear to me that I wasn't going to really be a true professional dancer. I was with the Washington Ballet in Washington, D.C. I grew up in D.C., have a lot of connections to Congress, to politics. Trent Lott, who is Senator of Mississippi, was my mother's first cousin. So I could go on and let you guys know about the real Washington, D.C., but that's a totally different podcast. But I danced at the Washington Ballet, and, they basically, told me that I wasn't really set to be a true premier ballet dancer. And that's good to know if that's the case. And then I wasn't a triple threat, singer, dancer, actress, because I really can't sing, and I'm not a fabulous actress. And so it was obvious I was going to have to go to college. Luckily, I was pretty smart, so I was able to get accepted to the University of Virginia, the McIntire School of Commerce, where I double concentrated in marketing and finance. Came out, decided I wasn't ready to go to Wall Street because that seems like selling your soul. So I married a professional athlete. We moved to LA. I got a little bit more dance training out there. Then we moved to Nashville, followed him because he decided he was never going to have a real job because he was going to go from being an athlete to a singer. And so therefore we moved to Nashville. The Cats were auditioning for their first ever team of cheerleader dancers. I auditioned, started with the Cats, and got my foot in the door through on-field performance.
That's pretty cool.
My parents were thrilled. They were like, wait, I'm sorry, you have a finance degree and you're a professional cheerleader? Yes, I make $20 a game.
Rolling in the money.
Rolling in the money, yes.
Oh man, I definitely want to come back to some of those things. That's actually that's probably one of the best intro stories I've had on here yet. So besides the Nashville Cats, you've been a brand expert consultant for at least 2 networks. You've been the executive producer of the halftime show for the Music City Bowl here in Nashville. You have been the director, making sure I get this right, of live talent and entertainment for the Tennessee Titans. You were for almost 15 years.
Yes,
and
15 years in the NFL,
Yep.
which is like 80 years because the NFL is like dog years.
Oh,
Every
man.
season is like 6. So really, I should be dead.
Oh, well, you look great.
Thanks.
And you're a current head of marketing for the IQ Talent Partners here in Nashville.
I am, yes.
Stacy, I'm super impressed with all this.
Well, that's sweet.
The other thing I want to mention is that you and your husband, Gary, run a nonprofit organization called Kindersport. I know we'll get into that because that's something that's near and dear to y'all's hearts.
Yeah, and we have a pretty, what I really want to tell people is, I've got a pretty significant real estate portfolio as well, which, as I know, this podcast is a lot about small businesses and starting your own small business. And while I've worked, for other people, we've always had side hustles for ourselves as well, which I just think is really important, that people have multiple streams of income and have some things that they control on their own.
I'm glad you bring that up. That's something I definitely want to tap into because it's scary if you just only have one.
Correct.
And most of us do. Most of us just have one job, and this is where our money comes from. And if the market changes, or if we lose our jobs, or whatever, we're hurting. But like I said, you seem to be like you're the person that gets up in the morning and you got a lot on your plate. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to drive down here to Spring Hill and hang out with me and have a little coffee and talk about you and all your accomplishments. And I'm really excited to hear what you've been doing and where you're heading. So you told us a little bit about your background. How'd you get there? You said you wanted to be a dancer, and what I'm looking for here too is like, what are the emotions that went through all this? Because you have these dreams. I want to be a dancer. That doesn't work out. You go to college, you get exposed to a whole different set of opportunities, and then you said you married a professional football player,
professional athlete.
Athlete.
He's an Olympian. Yes,
Olympian. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then and you've been to LA, and now you're back here in Nashville, and just you started off with the Cats doing $20 a game. It's like,
that's right.
What a roller coaster.
That's right. It's one foot in front of the other, right? And God has a plan, but you can't sit back and just expect it to roll out in front of you, right? You keep taking steps down that path that that is a plan for you. And lots of people don't follow the path that God lays out, and it ends badly, right? And it's never your will, it's God's will, and I'm a big believer in that. And God placed my husband in my life when I was really young, but it was necessary, and we've just been great partners. My whole life, really. I was 20 years old, and so I think that was helpful too. And it became clear that I wasn't really talented enough to be a ballet dancer. I wasn't talented enough to go dance with Beyonce. I was talented enough to be in some music videos and do some stage shows, and and be a professional cheerleader, right? So that's where my talent was, and that was perfect for me. And then I could use my marketing degree, and I have a really unique ability that I'm a performer and a business person, right? And so the job when you're dealing with game day entertainment with sports teams is, you have to understand that performance element, because you are giving people a show, and at the same time you are managing a business, right? The way the Titans ran kind of their entertainment, it was like it was a separate division with its own profit streams, its own revenue streams, its own profits, its own budget. And so I was running a little small entertainment business, on behalf of the Titans, essentially. And so it was a great, combination of my skill set, my business education, and my performance experience.
I think about this, like, when people say, "Oh, I started off as a cheerleader or a dancer," I don't know how do you actually say that? But I started off as a performer, for a sports team. And I think people hear, "Oh, I was a performer for a sports team," and that's really cool. But like, you didn't just stop there. Like, that was not like, this is not going to be the apex of who I am. You're like, I'm so much more than this. And like, a lot of people don't sometimes find that in themselves. Maybe later, maybe they do, maybe they never do it. But it seems early on you had big goals, big ambitions. Am I right?
I'm very ambitious. Yes, I
that.
like to keep a full plate. I'm very ambitious. I like to stay busy, but I also understand delayed gratification, which is something that's really missing in today's society. And another challenge with today's society is toxic mediocrity, which is one of my most hated characteristics. There's just I have no desire to be mediocre. I'm going to go all in and in it to win it, which I think is what attracted me, to my husband when I met him. He's probably the biggest influence in my life. He was an Olympian. He won the Olympic trials. He's not, if you looked at him, he's not the biggest guy you've ever seen. He's well built. He is a professional athlete, but I mean, it was just his will to win, and every day was going to, get up and I'm going to win. And that's really what's helped us. As I mentioned, our real estate portfolio. Real estate can be scary. You flip a house, it's scary. And, and he's never afraid. And I've just, followed that, because it's easy to be afraid, right? When you start your own thing, when you see your ambitions and you see your goals, we all have imposter syndrome, and you can be scary and then you stop. And when I watch my husband, he just never stopped. It just never scared him. And if it did, you didn't know. And he kept pushing forward and said, I'm going to figure this out. And I think men have that characteristic more than women. Women are a little more cautious, and we are a little bit more fearful. But I want to tell all my ladies out there, don't be. You've got to be just as strong as men, and see your goal, and every day get up and move forward to that goal. And I love cheer and dance. Being a performer is who I am. It's funny that you think it's impressive. It's a very mixed bag of what people think, right? I tend to tell some people and tell not some people, because sometimes as soon as there's a group of people that as soon as you say that, your IQ points go down about 100, in their opinion.
Just to clarify on that a little bit, when I looked at over your resume, that was 100% not my thought. My whole thought was like, I am super intimidated by this person. She is dynamic and amazing, and I want to be her friend.
Well, that's so fun. I want to be your friend.
I can see why Bill talks so highly of you. I'd really, my knowledge of you from Bill, was always, for years you were doing the Titans, and he would come and do the hair for the cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. And, which I never got the invite, by the way. My brother got to go a couple of times, but I never got to go see it. I did get to go to one of the auditions, or the final auditions for the cheerleaders.
Yeah.
One at the Wild Horse.
At the Wild Horse Saloon, yeah, cool. It was a big show.
I thought if there was ever a place I could drop dead, it would have been that place, because it was pretty cool. And then his guy Adam performed afterwards, so it was a lot of fun. But my working knowledge of you was always, oh, she's the lady from the Titans that does the cheerleading. That's all I had in my head. And then I go look at your resume, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, thank you.
I was super. It's not so much like it had nothing to do with your sports performance, like as a cheerleader or dancer or anything like that. It's just the simple fact that this looks like a person just on paper. The way you worded your LinkedIn, and on paper, this looks like somebody that was like taking over the world.
Oh gosh, thank you. I wish. I'm trying.
But it's what it
every
looks
day
like to me, And you've marketed yourself, like that. Like I'm about to take over the world, and maybe that inspiration comes from your husband. Maybe you're just that. I just think you're that awesome just listening to you talk. But you've talked about a couple of things like toxic mediocrity. That's a phrase I've probably not heard much.
It's rampant in today's society.
And can you expound on that a little bit?
We have decided, someone, not me, in this society, that I'm okay, you're okay, and you're fine just the way you are. And I just don't believe that, right? I mean, you could be better. I can be better. You can be better. We can all be better. And that's the message that I want to send every day is, how can I be better? Today, I'd like to be better than yesterday. How can I be better? I'm not fine just the way I am. I want to be better. And the signals given to, and I understand where, it came from. You want people to feel good about themselves and have self-esteem. But the downside to that is that it just allows for you to not have ambition and just be mediocre. And now we have all these people walking around thinking that mediocre is okay. And I'm just going to do this because I've been told I'm fine. I'm good just like this. And you're just mediocre. And I think at the end of the day, your happiness, comes from having that ambition and having a goal and having a drive and wanting to be better than mediocre. And, mental health and depression is just overwhelming in society. And I think that is the unintended consequence of trying to tell everybody, you're fine, you're great just as you are, you don't need to do anything else, has had a bad consequence of a mental health of people then having no ambition and then feeling bad, right? Because they're mediocre, and it becomes toxic, and it's very contagious, right? I mean, I'm around a mediocre person. They think they're fine. I want to do something more. And they say, why do you want to do more? We're fine just the way we are. Oh yeah, you're right. Let's not do anything more. And then it just grows, and it becomes a toxicity, and it's toxic mediocrity. And I mean, really, as a nation, we've got to get out of it. I mean, I'm a meritocratus, and I believe in ambition and the power of the American dream, and we all have it. Everybody in this country could be a millionaire. I could teach you how to do that. Every single person. But you have to get out of your own way.
How do you handle that when you run across somebody that's just like, just I'm fine, I'm cool. How do you handle that? And you also mentioned there are a lot of people out there that are just imposters. They're putting on a false face and putting it out there, whether it's on social media or whatnot. And it's like, they're not a player. You can tell. And I think that one. Some people who really are probably dynamic at heart maybe don't have that confidence or courage that you're talking about to really put themselves out there. So how do you when you come across those things, do you have do you step in and say, hey, this is what do you encourage?
I do encourage. I mean, especially when I was at the Titans and I had a game day staff of 60 people who I had really high expectations of. And, very quickly people separate themselves. Those that there are those that you lay out your high expectations and consequences for not meeting those high expectations. And then those people complain about you and go to HR and say you're mean and, and ultimately, weed themselves out, or you have the people that push against it for a minute, but then turn around and say, you changed my life. And I have so many of those that have come back to me and said, you changed my life because I didn't know how to achieve goals until I was, with you. And at the end of the day, I don't tell people it's okay. I just don't. And, there's some people that, and, my husband's the same way. And, we call it Camp Kinder, and Camp Kinder is not for everyone. And if you don't want to rise up, then, we're moving on without you. Right. Our social group and our friend group and the people that I associate with, all have those same goals, right? I'm in the middle of a flip house with a girlfriend of mine. That's another, she's an actress, cheerleader dancer, has super high goals. And, and we, flipping a house is not easy. And it's a lot of hard work. And she is a high achiever. And we went in with the same goals. And that's who I work with. Because you get about halfway through flipping your house and you want to quit every time. But you can't quit because you got a half-built house.
My brother tried flipping a house once. I kind of wish he stuck with it because it was over off Wedgwood.
Yeah.
And I think this was in like 2005. So he got it like probably around $100,000.
Sure.
And I guess that thing's probably 8 times as much more valuable now just because of where it's located in Nashville. But I never thought about flipping a house. I think I knew it was going to be a work. So I was like, that's not where I'm at right now.
It's work, right? And I've never been afraid of WORK. Just, I like it. I like it. And that's what house flipping is. And, it's just been a side hustle that's been very, very lucrative for us. And I have 2 real estate mentors. One is Mark Bloom, who owns the Hilton downtown. He owns Margaritaville downtown. He used to own Union Station. He was very influential in my life. And he said, the only way normal people, you and me, normal people, didn't come from money, maybe went to college, can get really wealthy is through real estate. And he told me that probably 20 years ago. And I heard it and I was like, noted. Thank you. And, I learned from him. And then we have a friend here. I'm sitting here in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And, he's called the mayor of Spring Hill, which is John Mayer, owns John Mayer Homes. And he's another mentor of ours. My husband coached 2 of his children. And he basically built Spring Hill. He is the reason Spring Hill is here. And if your listeners live in Spring Hill, they know that. And he's another one of our real estate mentors. And he was a teacher. He was wife for teachers. He went to MTSU, played football. I don't want to say nothing special, but didn't come from money. And, and he's one of the biggest developers in Middle Tennessee now. And I learned that it's hard work. And he taught me real estate is forgiving, right? So my one friend said, the only way you get really wealthy is real estate. And he said real estate is forgiving because if you can't sell it the rate you want to sell it, you can rent it. And if you can't rent it, you can Airbnb it, you can corporate rental it. And there's always going to be a place, for you to have a soft landing. And we have some houses that, to your point about, flipping, that we couldn't flip at the price we wanted. So we rented them. And we ended up keeping them, like that house in Wedgwood that you wish you kept, for 10 years, and they tripled in value. Like the best thing that ever happened to us is that we couldn't sell our flip, right? And, it became really valuable. So, but it's scary. It's very, very scary to buy your first flip house. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but you just keep soldiering on.
Whether it's in entertainment or real estate, what do you think? You talked about ordinary people becoming extraordinary. What do you think separates those people?
Courage, faith, and will. It is hard to not be afraid, right? We get in our own way with fear. And the best way to fight fear is through your faith, right? I just think God's got this, right? If you're trying to walk through life on your own, it's very, very difficult. And but that fear can dissipate when you just think God's got this. This is in front of me. It's in front of me because it's on my path. I'm going to continue walking down that path. And then, will. You've got to have your personal will, your personal drive, your personal self-discipline to have the will to listen to the faiths and keep walking forward, right? And you've got to be able to combine those things. And not everybody has those, but they can all be taught and learned. And you wake up every day and you decide, today I'm going to have that. We have we call it the 4 pillars of Camp Kinder, right? So I would recommend that if you live your life with the 4 pillars of Camp Kinder, really you have a much better life, right? I mean, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to be successful. I mean, you're certainly not going to be, living in poverty, right? 4 pillars of Camp Kinder are personal responsibility, right? Personal responsibility. You are responsible for you. No one else is responsible for you. If you're an adult and you're able-bodied, no one is responsible for you but you. I mean, and again, you have to accept that, right? I am responsible for me. And now I'm responsible for my children and my husband and, people. Now I believe that because I'm successful, I'm responsible for people in need that might need me. But first and foremost, if I have to be responsible for myself. And then accountability, right? I have to be held accountable and people have to know they can rely on me, right? If I tell you, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be here at 9 o'clock for your podcast, right? Well, then I'm going to be here at 8:55 prepared for your podcast. And you're going to know the next time you call me, you can rely on me and I'm accountable. And if something were to happen, then I'm going to own up, right? It's not an excuse. I'm going to own up, right? If there had been a lot of traffic and I wasn't here on time, the excuse is not there's a lot of traffic. It's because I didn't leave early enough to accommodate for the traffic. I didn't check the traffic in today's world of technology before I left and planned to leave earlier. The traffic is not the excuse. The accountable person says, on me. I didn't do the right thing to prepare for the traffic, right? So personal responsibility, personal accountability, integrity. You've got to be honest. You've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to be honest with others. I mean, you can't lie to yourself. You can't lie to others. You just have to, have integrity. I mean, it makes you right with God. It makes you right with the world. You have to have integrity. Once I went to Target once and, you got your cart and you're checking out and I got all the way out and I realized a jar of jelly had rolled kind of underneath the seat of the cart and hadn't been scanned. And I'm all the way at my car, putting stuff away. And I'm like, this is $1.99. But one of my pillars is integrity. And I walked back into Target, and paid for that jelly because that's what you do, right? Otherwise it would be stealing. Even though I didn't mean to steal, it's still stealing. And then the 4th pillar, because you have to have 4, pillars to hold up a roof or else the roof slides off and won't work, is self-discipline. You've got to have self-discipline in order to do all the other things, right? You've got to discipline yourself. Delayed gratification, discipline yourself, every day. And that's, that comes with your fitness and your health and your goal setting, right? I mean, you've got to teach yourself to delay your gratification and have self-discipline. And I was lucky I had parents that were pretty strict. So they instilled a lot of discipline, but those 4 things are the key, and you've really got to have all 4 of them. And if you choose to have all 4 of them, because it's a choice, it's just a choice you make, you will have success. If that is how you live your life every day, and you put those 4 things in front of you every day, you will have success.
I hear these having these values, these pillars you're talking about. I had these from a lot of different extraordinary people. Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about stuff like this. Having a vision, putting in the work. Do you have accountability partners? People that hold you beside maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your kids. Do you have people that hold you accountable that you rely on, or you feel like that because of your 4 pillars you're holding yourself accountable?
Well, I think I have a lot of people that hold me accountable because I tell a lot of people I'm going to do things that I expect they're going to hold me accountable to do, right? I mean, in addition to, all of my jobs,
got a lot of jobs.
all of my jobs that I have to do. I'm really active in charity because I'm a Catholic, and that you are charged with helping the poor, women, orphans, and the poor, right? Is who you're charged with helping once you are successful and responsible for yourself. And so, I sit on the board with Tracy Lawrence. He's a country artist. His Mission Possible board. I've been on his board since its founding. And we do a lot of work in the community. We do a huge turkey fry. This year we fried 1,200 turkeys the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And then we do a golf tournament in the spring to raise money, and then we give the money away. We basically feed everybody who needs food at Thanksgiving, receives food from us, right? 1,200 turkeys goes a long way. And I have a lot of responsibilities, with that. So, that board is my accountability partners. If I tell them, I'm responsible for finding 200 volunteers and assigning the volunteers what they're going to do, and we have 100 fryers on, at the fairgrounds, I have to make sure all that's accounted for, or the whole event is not going to happen. right? And so, those are my accountability partners. I have other friends, my friend I'm flipping the house with. If I don't hold up my end of what I'm doing with her, and if I say, I'm going to go over there today and, put in the baseboard, well, we're going to go and put in the baseboard. It's going to be done today, right? Because otherwise she's going to come and be like, why didn't you do that? We got to sell this house.
Man.
The house is just off the square in Franklin, if anybody would like it. It's currently listed 818 Weston Circle.
We'll throw that in the description.
It's a delightful 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, complete remodel.
But it's gorgeous.
It is beautiful. My friend I'm doing it with is a phenomenal designer. She did the bulk of the design work, and it's exquisite. We're in a little bit of a tough market, and but we're going to come out of it.
We'll see how 2024 goes.
We'll see.
We'll see. I am personally going to live a life of hope. I don't want to be one of these naysayers. I know there's a lot of negative energy out there and a lot of negative news media. And this is, China's coming after us. There could be a cyber. There's all these things going on right now. And it's so easy to get stuck in this mindset of like, oh man, the sky's going to fall or worse, But I don't want to live like that. There's nothing I can do to control it. I'm not in a position of power. I'm not God. I can't do any of these things. All I can do is, have faith that it's going to be a good day, And so
that's right.
I've really chosen personally to have an outlook of positivity, and that the world that I create around me is one of positivity, because, I don't want this stuff to happen. I don't want anything, there's a lot of friends around here that are like, I feel like they just can't wait to get their guns out. I'm like, not that I'm against guns or anything. It's just like, guys, you really want this to happen? Because how am I going to get my contacts? That's the things I think about, if the world falls apart, and that's just one little goofy thing I think.
Where am I going to get my lip gloss?
Exactly. I actually have a stash of Blistex.
Oh, there you go. So that's what I'm hoarding. I'm hoarding the Blistex.
People always ask you, if you had one thing on a deserted island, what would it be?
Yeah.
Besides food, but and water, but I gotta have my Blistex. I don't think I could function without it. Like, if I don't have it, I actually go into a panic attack mode.
So I have a friend, and it's Aquaphor, so it's in the same category.
Yeah.
That's
what would
funny.
be the one thing you'd want on a deserted island?
Oh my gosh, books. Probably sunscreen. I'm really fair. I've got a lot of Irish blood in me, so I probably need some sunscreen so I didn't burn up. But and then after sunscreen, books.
Books, fantastic. You've got a book coming.
Well, we hope so. We're working toward it.
We'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. So you've got all these things going on, and one thing I do appreciate about what you're saying is, and I run across this so much running businesses, working with people, it's like you give people tasks and they may or may not do it. And sometimes I have to look and go, did I explain this right? Did I set clear expectations? What's the repercussions for not doing it? Am I holding them accountable? And part of that's because I'm not holding myself accountable. These are things I've reflected on just over the last year and said, I've got to do better. I've got to do better, because it does drive me nuts. It's like, hey, I need you to get something done, and who else is going to do it? If you don't do it, I got to do it. And if I got to do it, why don't I pay you to do it? But, you're doing a lot. What fuels you? Where does the drive come from?
Well, I do want to take over the world. I'm a performer, right? I love attention.
I love it.
And that's really transparent. And
we'll make that a T-shirt.
I love attention. And when you grow up as a dancer, you're in the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
And both my boys, before they started sports, they danced, because I just felt like it's such a good fundamental to be able to be in front of people, and I like to be in front of people. And the more I do, the more opportunities I have to be in front of people. And so I think that's, getting attention drives me really, which is super superficial. And I think. Not that I am afraid, I guess, of not having money. My mother-in-law asked me the other day, she was like, when are you going to have enough? And I just thought, I don't ever think that way. I don't know when I'll have it. It's not a greed thing. It's, it's security. And I didn't grow up in poverty or anything like that. We were fine. But, I just, I have 2 children I have to take care of, and, all these houses. And I know I have to keep going, or else it'll fall apart.
And the world's crazy.
And the world is crazy, but we're both staying positive, right? And so I think that drive just comes from, I like being in the mix. I genuinely like being in the mix. I have, we all fight through laziness. That's another part of toxic mediocrity. Human beings are lazy. Like, that's our DNA. We, especially since we've ended the hunter-gatherer time, right? we were hunter-gatherers and we worked all the time because we had to for food.
Yeah.
But we've learned quickly that humans as a race, like once we don't have to really work, labor for our food and our shelter, God, we're lazy.
Man.
We're lazy.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
I fight it every day.
You do have to fight it. And you do. And so when I do, I get up and I fight it. And I know I have life is short. And, I want to pack it in, man. Pack it in.
I love it. I'm kind of like you. I think I love the attention.
Sure.
I was a college. I played college basketball. My mother always said, "This is the only way you're going to go to college," and that was ingrained in my head from a young age. And I obviously have the frame for it. I'm 6'7".
Yeah.
But I was skinny. I didn't really start putting on weight until here in my later years. But when I graduated high school, I was 6'7", 165.
Wow.
I was a toothpick.
Oh my God.
But truth be told, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be on stage.
Same.
And I love theater. I absolutely love it. I wanted to do plays in college, but I couldn't because the theater professor we only had one. I love her to death. She was militant. Mm-hmm. So it was the commitment to the theater was probably stronger than the commitments I had to my sport, which actually paid for college. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't do both. But fortunately, I had the opportunity to go back there and work. And when I went there to work, I didn't have basketball to worry about. So I was able to kind of get in to the theater program and do some plays. And I absolutely love the work that goes into being an actor. I don't think people understand that. It's not just you're talented and you've got charisma and you're good looking, but those I think are just awesome and successful. The amount of work that goes into it. And that's where the fun for me existed. I want, and sometimes it's like, and I've done 1,000 different jobs. I can't remember. I mean, I've cleaned pools, I've mowed yards, I've worked in heating and air, I've been a teacher, and worked in a college. I've done a lot of different. I've worked in a gas station, and sometimes those jobs are just. That's where I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to work. So it is work, but when you find those things like theater or dance, that kind of fuel you and put you in that spotlight. Sometimes those things go away, and it's like, where does that fuel come from? Where does that desire to grow and be in the spotlight? And it's kind of hard to find sometimes.
It is. And the older you get, I mean, I struggle a lot with being a little older and knowing that, I'm not going to be in front of the camera all the time anymore. Right. I mean, that light has passed and, and that can get me down, but then I find the other things that I'm going to do to fuel that fire and, get that attention, if you will. I find that all athletes are performers, right? They all love it, right?
Yeah,
they wouldn't be driven without the crowd goes wild, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why my husband, he was an athlete and then he was a singer.
Sounds
right?
like a chapter in your book. So chapter title. And the crowd goes wild.
And once you have a dose of that, it's addictive. I mean, the dopamine rush, it's real. And, that's why a lot of people, when they leave that world, I saw it a lot in the NFL. It's hard. It's a hard transition out for our players, for me, for anybody who, you're in that world. And even if you're not even a performer on the performance side of the NFL, you work there and it's very part of your identity and people are impressed by it, right? You get a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. And so it's a different type of world that if you leave, you've got to really fight through the struggle of, finding your self-worth in other ways and, getting that attention. But most of us all like attention. Very few of us like to admit it. But
I don't have a problem admitting that. I had my friend the other day call me a peacock. Because you're a peacock.
Well, listen.
I said, well, that's me.
People notice me. I'm 6'7", first of all. And listen, what a blessing. I mean,
there's two of me too.
Is he also 6'7"?
Yeah, we're identical.
God, that's so great.
We'd walk into a gym and it's just like, all eyes are on you, and so you have to walk in with a chip on your shoulder.
Oh, absolutely.
And first thing people always said about me when they met, before they actually get to know me, is like, I thought you're kind of cocky. And I'm like, I'm the most insecure person I know. So, but I had to learn to accept that I was going to get the attention regardless because of just, I stand out,
your physical appearance.
Appearance. And so I had to embrace that. And don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of moments where I've felt bad about myself, or I'm depressed, or I don't feel good about myself, or man, I could look better, or I could have more money, or whatever the conversation. It's always, that's a constant thing. But, you know, I have to dig deep too. You know, everybody does.
Everybody does.
And go, you know what? I'm not that person. You know, I'm awesome, you know, and I want this attention.
That's right.
I'm going to embody it. You know, I'm not going to feel bad about it.
And 6'7" is such a blessing. I mean, I'm the mother of athletes.
Until you get in an airplane.
Well, that's true. I'm the other mother of athletes, and they're phenomenal athletes. My oldest son is a Division I athlete at the University of Oregon. My
Go Ducks.
That's right, go Ducks. My youngest son is a two-sport athlete at Brentwood High School, and you know, they're both barely scraping 6 feet tall, and like they would saw off their left arm, you know, for height, because it's a blessing, right? It's just a genetic blessing if you're an athlete. Like the taller you are, you know, the better path you're going to have toward athletics. And if you're not as tall, you better have some drive and work ethic to be really good, because you can still, you know, you can still make it. And I fight through that with my boys when they're like, "Oh, I'm not tall enough." I'm like, "Well, then what are we going to do? We can't control that. So here are the things we can control. And we're going to be better at everybody else in all of these things, because that's what we can control."
So you 100% don't believe in limitations?
I don't believe in limitations. I mean, you're limited by yourself, and things happen, right? I mean, things happen to all of us. Course. But it's, you know, it's a roadblock, and you have to figure out a way to, you know, to keep going. And life is we are not all equal, right? We are all created equal in God's eyes, right? But we are not all equal. You are 6'7", so the chances of you playing college basketball are far superior to my son, who's 5'11", period. Right? You guys are not equal in that. Your opportunity in that world is far superior to my son's. Okay. That's okay. I mean, so I think we have to really get over this thing that we want to put everybody on this equality playing field, and until everyone is truly equal, there's some people who are limited. And that's just, you just have to accept. I mean, some people are born billionaires, some people are born poor, right? And we have to do a better job of educating people on how to achieve success, right? That school is not teaching people how to be successful, particularly financially, but in every other way. I mean, there's no course.
Especially financially.
But yeah, there's nothing on, you know, I mean, the taxes are so confusing. My husband, I harp on it all the time because I manage, you know, we have a really crazy, confusing tax situation. We have a nonprofit of which my husband is an employee. So he's an actual W-2 employee of the nonprofit. I manage that. We have our real estate portfolio that has a crazy tax situation. And then obviously, you know, I have a W-2 job with all of the regular taxes in it. I mean, and just understanding how money works and what the government expects of you so you don't get in trouble if you own your own business, right? I mean, there's a lot of roadblocks for people to own their own business because of the IRS. Don't get me started on how I feel about that. I mean, it's like they don't want you to be in business for yourself. You have to really fight hard to figure out how to do that. But if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, when we founded our nonprofit, it was kind of something we were just doing it as a sole proprietorship. We kind of had some things happen that we needed to make it a nonprofit. And I mean, how do you know, it's a Form 1023-S if you need to know how to create a nonprofit. I'd never done that before. Why would I do that? And, you know, I went with my CPA. She'd never done it before, but I ended up sending a 53-page packet to the IRS to get my tax-exempt nonprofit status. Yeah. And I just powered through. Every day, I did a little bit of it at a time for about 6 weeks until I accumulated 53 pages and sent it into the IRS. And then eventually, they sent me a letter and they said, "Congratulations, you win."
Wow. I've heard setting up it's 501c3.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, setting that up is tough. Like there's a lot of steps to jump.
It's a 501c3. The form you fill out is a 1023. That's what you start with to apply.
Right. And then you got to have your plan.
Oh yeah, it's 53 pages.
Wow.
Right? I mean, but okay, well that's what we're doing.
Awesome.
And every day, I mean, you know, and it was daunting.
Yeah.
It was incredibly daunting. But that was the plan.
Yeah.
I was holding myself accountable. Like this has to be done.
It has to be done.
And, you know, and I made a rule for myself that, you know, every day I'm going to put in at least 30 minutes on the application. And eventually, you know, we're going to get down. I had an accountability partner, my CPA. We would do like a section, and then she would say, "Okay, let's get through section 2 by next Wednesday."
Yep.
You know, and so the next Wednesday I had an appointment with her. It was on the calendar. I knew to get through section 2. And then the next Wednesday, right? And so I had those deadlines and an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And we got through it.
Yeah. I think it's so important to have an accountability partner. Talk about your nonprofit. Talk about it. Like it sounds like so exciting. You know?
Well, as I said, I am blessed. I married an Olympian. He is a decathlete. He won the Olympic trials in 1988 and went to Seoul.
I went to the Olympics once.
Yeah, which ones did you go to?
I didn't compete.
Do you want to watch?
No, I got. So I went to Asbury University in Kentucky. Do you know Asbury?
I don't.
Asbury has a relationship because of their department head in the program, in their broadcasting program, with OBS, and so every time there's an Olympics, they usually take about 60 students to work. You know, whether they're camera assistants or they're in the IVC or whatever the job is, they get assigned a job, so they get that on their resume, which is really, really cool. It's probably one of the big selling points for the program. The years that I was there wasn't a main Olympics, but the one summer there was the youth summer games.
Okay.
So they only took about 8 of us, and my department chair was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "You want to go to China?" I went,
wow.
I literally stopped and was like, "Yes."
Yes, I do.
Yes. And the first thing in my head was, I don't want to go to China. God, it's so far away. I don't like Chinese food or nothing like that. That's all that went through my head, you know. But I said, no, yeah, I'll go. And I was the only grad student they asked to go. And it was awesome. It was an awesome experience.
And that's another example of how do you have success? You say yes.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you think, I don't want to do that, it's going to be work, it's going to take away from my other time, you say yes. If an opportunity is presented to you that is going to move you forward or help you network in any way, even if you're tired, yes, I'm going. Yes, I'm going. Yes, I'm going. Yes, yes, yes. No excuses. Yes.
I want to get back to your nonprofit, but the first thing I learned in college, very first class, very first day, very first year of college, first thing the professor said, 90% of life is showing up.
100%. That's just yes. And people don't, and it's a bummer. And and I don't get it. And I'm back to my toxic mediocrity. We've allowed people for it to be okay if you say, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it. Hey, it's snowing, I can't come. Hey, it's raining, I don't want to get out. Right? I mean, schools have done it with, closing because, they're afraid of liability. The liability attorneys have just done so much damage, in my opinion, because everyone's afraid to do anything because of liability. And so therefore people feel like it's okay to not go to school if there's an ounce of snow. And that bleeds over to kids that grow up like that, think, well, if it's snowing, I can't do it. If it's raining, I can't do it. If I don't feel good, oh, you don't feel good. I can't tell how many people say, oh, you don't feel good, just go home and get some rest. What are you talking about? If you tell me you don't feel good, I say, here, what medicine can I get you? You want an ibuprofen? You want some oils?
Yeah.
I got a lot in the closet. How can we keep going and not, and my last resort is like, if you're on your deathbed, then maybe I guess you rest. But we've just done this thing of like, I'm not really feeling good, so I'm just going to lay down. And everyone's like, oh, that's fine. What?
No.
It's not fine. And
I wish I had you as my coach back in the day. Because there was times I was like, I don't want to do this. And I had that attitude.
Well, everybody does. Everybody. And, again, and I can't tell you people that I've coached, they get mad at me. She doesn't have any empathy and, she's mean. She doesn't understand. I just don't want you to have an excuse because it bleeds. Like once you do that once and people tell you it's okay that you didn't show up, it's so much easier to do the second time and the third time and the fourth time.
Yeah.
It gets easier and easier and easier to not show up. And then if along the way people are telling you, it's okay, don't worry about it. Well, fine, fantastic. I won't worry about it.
I think some of us are actually looking for that.
A way out.
They're waiting for somebody to say it's okay not to do it.
100%. There's so many people like that. And then ultimately we circle all the way back to their mental health. It's bad for them in the end. They think they want that because that laziness side of them thinks they want that because they just want to be lazy and watch Netflix and sit on their phone at home.
Yeah. But
that just lends itself when you don't have any purpose. Your mental health really, really suffers. And so at the end of the day, what you should want, even though you want people to let you out of it, you have to understand this is going to end up in a path that leads to self-destruction and depression. So I need for someone to not let me get out of this.
My sophomore year of college, I got homesick that year, not the first year. Sophomore year, I got homesick. A lot was going on at home.
Is there a girlfriend?
There was. I'd broken up with her.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's like, it was one of those things at that point, I wasn't so much that I was unhappy that I broke up with her. It was more like, man, I'm by myself. Because I went to a college, I didn't go to a college like UT or Vandy or, the guy to girl ratio was 5-1, and it was 5 guys to every 1 girl. And the dynamics of the females there was, per se, that I would say almost half of them were not interested in men.
Wow.
That other half
Yikes.
that was, 5% of them were the ones you wanted to chase.
That wore lip gloss.
So if you
everybody
didn't
everybody else didn't have lip gloss on.
If you didn't snag a girlfriend in the first 10 minutes of college, you didn't get one. But so that was my college experience. And then sometimes man, I really cheated myself by not going to a different school. But I love my college, don't get me wrong. Which is kind of the point of my story. And then the sophomore year, I had made all these friends my freshman year, and 4 of them came back. There was just I had to make all new friends. My brother got a girlfriend, so he was kind of out of the picture. He was over there with her, and I was just I just didn't know what to do. I was struggling with basketball. I wasn't playing. I wasn't going to get to play. I didn't have the right mindset. Grades were struggling. I couldn't get my grades up for nothing. So I was just in a spot where I was just this is not going to work. And I remember calling my mom one night, and I said, I'm coming home. I don't want to do this anymore. And she was like, and I didn't know this. I really didn't know, not until much later, what my mom was going through. And which was, my sister was pregnant, and she was about to have a baby. Or she'd just gotten pregnant. My sister was 15 at the time. And the home life was a little chaotic, to say the least. I just didn't know these things were going on. I mean, I knew she had gotten pregnant because they told me, but what my mom was emotionally going through, I didn't know. But I called her up, and here's one more thing I want to add on my mom's plate was, I don't want to be here. I'm unhappy. I want to come home. That's literally how I kind of said it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where she got the strength, but all she said was, you are not coming home. She goes, you're not a quitter. You're not coming home. And I argued and argued. And I said, I think we finally came to an agreement. She goes, you're going to stick out this semester, and we'll talk about it at Christmas. But you're not coming home. She was just really adamant about it. I think I hung up the phone mad, upset, and probably in tears. But as fate would have it, I got hurt in basketball. So I didn't have to go to practice anymore. All of a sudden, I had all this free time. And I remember my hall director came up to me and said, hall director of my dorm,
Mm-hmm.
he said, his name is Dave Kirshner, great guy, love him to death. He said, man, I know you're not happy here. He goes, but we got this homecoming thing coming up. And we didn't have fraternities and sororities at Union. So he said, we need to form a team to do these competitions. He goes, will this be something you want to do? And I remember it was just like the China thing. It was like, I really didn't. I was like, so I took this little paper and went, okay, fine. I'll do it. And I don't know what happened, but I owned it. I literally took it and owned it. I was like, I'm going to make the best of this. So it was a mindset shift. I said, I want to own this. And the competitions were things like karaoke competitions and T-shirt competitions and hall decorations. And we did like a little Olympic thing. And, there's all these little events that we had to do. And I remember seeing it the year before, being a little bit of a part, but not much. And I just remember looking at those events going, I can own every one of these. And I applied what creativity I had to this. And we not only, and it just went to the next level. Not only did we win the entire thing, our hall. I won every event. We won every event. And not only did we win every event, win the whole thing, but it sparked a competition that lasted the entire time I was in college.
Yeah.
Where everybody, and it changed the dynamic of campus life at our school. Because all of a sudden, because Union was one of those places, if you didn't bring it with you, you didn't find it there.
Right, sure.
So, and all of a sudden, everybody was, just the whole dynamic changed. And I can't say it was all me, but I think part of me really realized that there was a lot I brought to the table. And it was really because somebody looked at me and said, no, you're not going to quit. But what I really found out was what I was really good at. I knew I was going to be a basketball player. I wasn't going pro. I was like, that was not a thing. And I wasn't an academic, but I was really good at bringing people together and creating a lot of fun. And that's what I do with this comic book shop. It's not all about selling books and toys. It's about creating a place where people come together and have a lot of fun. So that's a little bit of my personality.
Sure.
But it took somebody to tell me don't quit to find that. Sometimes you gotta, it's like a caterpillar, when they make their cocoon and become a butterfly. It's like you
metamorphosis is what that's called.
There you go. Such a big word. Such a big word for me. But I had this transformation, and it was awesome. And it was probably the first time that ever really happened. That way.
And here's what I would tell you: you had purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose is so important. You had purpose.
Yeah.
And then you had accountability partners.
Yeah.
You had all these people that you were accountable to make this work. Right. And you're an athlete. So, even though you weren't feeling that competitive at that moment, who you are is competitive. Right. Or you wouldn't have been an athlete. Right. So you combined, but it started out with having purpose and saying yes, fighting through your laziness.
Yeah.
Saying yes, which then gave you the purpose and then gave you people that were accountable to you that then re-sparked that competitive spirit. Right. And then you found your gift. And I'm just a big believer that we all have gifts and we all have purpose. We all have a reason that we're here and we're what we're supposed to be doing, what, that personality trait that God gave us, that why are we here? We all have it. But you have to do the work to find out what that is and bring it out and find your purpose. It's not, if you're just watching Netflix and scrolling Instagram, you're not going to find it. And, God's not, sending you notes through the mail. Like he's not sending you an email to say, hey, here's your purpose. Here's what you need to do today. But you have to believe it's there and you do the work to find it. And sometimes you have to do a lot of different things. You get up and you say yes to everything. And then eventually say yes to the thing that really does click.
Yeah. I've got a favorite quote from The Hobbit. I'm a big Lord of the Rings. I'm a big J.R.R. Tolkien fan.
Yeah.
I know my friends kind of tease me because I know so much about it. The books and the films. I was a fan of the books and I loved the films, and then I've gotten more into the books. One of my favorite quotes is in the beginning of The Hobbit. Bilbo, the main character, does not want to go on this adventure that Gandalf is trying to employ him into, because for hobbits, that's not their personality. Mm-hmm. Their personality is comfort, sitting at home, food, and keeping your nose clean. That's what a hobbit is. It's kind of like their personalities, and Bilbo is trying to embody that of a hobbit, but that's not who he is deep down, and Gandalf knows it. And after a long argument with Gandalf, Gandalf finally looks at him and says, the world is not in your books and maps. It's out there.
That's right.
And it's a powerful statement, because he leaves him. It leaves him with that statement. And then, of course, Bilbo joins the party and goes on this grand adventure and becomes somebody completely different. And you got to have those people who challenge you, who know deep down that you got it, and I try to surround myself by those people. That's why I wanted to have you on my podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I want people like you to challenge me and say, man, you can do better. You can do better. And that's the one thing I miss about sports.
Yeah.
Is having that person constantly in your face, constantly in your ear saying, you're not doing it right. Do it this way. I'm not going to tell you this. I'm not going to, I never was coddled.
Right.
In fact, my coach in high school, and probably a little bit too much to an extreme, but he literally looked me in the eye and said, you should have never even played basketball. And what do you do with that? What does somebody do that with today?
Hey, listen, my Russian ballet teacher said, you will never be a real ballerina with those thighs. Got it. No coddling. Again, coddling leads to toxic mediocrity.
Yeah.
Right? You coddle a baby, right, until they're, old enough to start going. And then they don't need to be coddled. They need to be encouraged. Mm-hmm. They need to be disciplined.
Shaped.
They need to have expectations. They need to have consequences, right? What people don't need is coddling.
No.
Right? And love is not coddling. Coddling is the anti-love.
Wow, big statement there. I love it. So tell me about your personal strategies. How do you see yourself as a leader? Whether it's a parent or in your businesses, what are the things that you work on? I mean, we talked about just your 4 pillars. Are there any day-to-day strategies that you kind of employ? Like, is there something like I get up, I have my coffee, or this is the things you maybe don't focus on, maybe things you do focus on? Because, for me, it's got to be a little routine, because it's so easy to get into that. I'll just kind of wing it today, and it's like that doesn't really get the plane where it needs to go. You've got to have a compass and a map. What's your strategies?
Well, one thing about leadership is that I really am a big believer in lead by example, right? I think there's a lot of leaders out there that expect because I have a title, you therefore will respect me, and people aren't built that way. Like they're not, even they're not going to respect you because you have a title. They want to see, and they respect leaders that work. Lead by example and put in the work, right? And again, the strategy, I think it goes back to having a full plate, right? I know there's a lot of gurus that are like, I get up every day at 5 and I make sure I read my devotional and and then I work out. And my life is, because I have 4 jobs for 5 or 6.
I think you can do one more.
I have so many things I have to get done every day
Yeah.
that it's inherent in that I've created a life that forces me to have a list of things I have to get through every day.
Yeah.
Because or else I'm not going to be accountable.
Do you make
right?
lists?
I make lists, absolutely.
Do you have like a day you make lists, or you do it every morning?
Every morning.
Every morning.
Every morning, I know what I've got to get done, and I get through that list.
And I'm sure there's days like you got 10 things, you check off 2, you just don't feel good about yourself.
Right. And if I don't do anything, I mean, I some days it is good. You have to learn how to rest, right? You can't be in this constant state of fight or flight all the time, which I tend to be in. And so you do every once in a while try to find a way that you can be happy just being, because your brain does need that. That's difficult for me because I get a little anxious if I'm just being, because I'm so used to having, so much on my plate. So I do have to force myself to sometimes have those days where I'm just gonna be. They're very few and far between, but if you don't want to follow the guru things of, you get up, you work out, like I know every day I'm going to work out, whether it's the first thing in the morning, whether it's at lunch, whether it's when I, get home at night, I'm going to do a workout, right? Whether it's go for a run, whether it's do a quick 20-minute strength program. I've got weights in our garage. I live with all athletes. Our garage is a weight room. Whether I go out in the garage and I just lift for 20 minutes, and that's just a personal accountability thing for me. Yeah. Like I'm not going to let the day go by without doing my workout. I get up every day. I'm big into the belief. My husband thinks I'm crazy about red light and sunlight in the morning. One thing I always do is I go out. We have a little side deck that's right at sunrise, and that light is so good for you and your circadian rhythms. And so I go out there and I do a little probably 8 minutes of just some yoga, some sun salutations, and let that sun get on my face. And I think that releases dopamine and hormones and starts your day because that light is in your face. I highly recommend people look into that. There's a lot of research on it, and it's real. The vitamin D and just how it makes you feel in that morning. Yeah. And and then you get up and you're like, okay, here are the things I've got to get. I know I have to get done today. This is what I have to get done for this job. This is what I have to get done for this job. This is what I have to get done for my W-2 job. These are the 4 Christmas gifts I've got to get out the door, and then they're gonna get done. And I'm a little neurotic, and if they don't get done, I feel anxious, right? I feel better. I mean, some people are like, it's fine if you don't do it, but I can't. I'm not built that way. I don't feel fine. I feel fine when it's done, because otherwise I'm nervous until it's done.
I can be like that. I sometimes make a list, and you got all these things. I'm gonna wake up and do all this stuff, and you drag the whole day out for one thing, and you just don't feel accomplished. You're like, man. But then sometimes you got to just tell yourself, like, all right, got to put this to bed. I get up tomorrow, and then you do 10 times as much, So
every day doesn't work out to plan,
no.
But have things planned. I mean, have things in your schedule.
So I've been doing my own business for, I don't know, it's not been 10 years yet, but first of all, I wish I had done this 20 years ago, but I didn't, but I have been doing my own business for about 10 years, and I've never really had a plan. I have literally winged it 90% of the time. And but I've sat down, most recently, this is part of the reason I'm doing these podcasts. And I've sat down and wrote out a plan. I was like, why have I never put a plan together? In sports, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan for, how you're going to get better. The coach has to have a plan to win the game. It's like, I've never put a plan together. When you do theater, you have a script. You got to follow the script, Sure, there's room to be, to bring your personality into it, because that's actually part of the game. But it's like there's a plan, and it's just like duh.
Well, you're hardworking. You know what I mean? Hard work sometimes will make up for a lot of if you don't have a plan. If you're just willing to work, I'm willing to get up and get done what needs to get done. That'll cover up. The plan will take you probably to the next level. But if you're just willing to work, if you show up and then you're willing to work at your business, you'll get, and that's how you got here. And then you're like, okay, I can grow. Now I have a plan, I can grow. But you're a worker, so congratulations.
I love working.
We should all love working. Well, we are made to work. We are not made for thousands of years, we had to go find our own food and build our own houses. Every single one of us had to find our own food and build our own houses. And then only in very recent human history have we become that we don't have to do that. And it's not good. We are made to work. We are not made to sit around and watch Netflix and scroll Instagram. That is not what we're made to do. It's not good for you.
Do you ever watch Netflix?
100%. Of course, everybody does.
What's your favorite show on Netflix?
Oh my God. I loved Ozark.
Okay.
I loved Yellowstone, which is on Paramount, not Netflix.
Gotcha. Yep. It's the same thing. It's all streaming services.
No, it's all streaming services. Yeah. Yellowstone was just amazing piece of. My husband and I were Rip and Beth, for those of you who watch about Yellowstone for Halloween this year.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah,
you look like her, by the way.
I get that a lot. Like Halloween, they're like, "Oh my God,
she's here."
She is my spirit animal. I love it. I love me some.
I've never watched the show.
Have you not watched Beth?
Everybody
Dutton?
keeps saying I should watch it, but I think it was one of those things where it's like, man, I just don't want to commit to it. Not that I had anything against it, but maybe one day I'll go back and watch it. I did that with Lost.
Oh yeah.
When Lost was big, I was like, everybody's like, "Oh, watch Lost," and I was like, when people tell you something, they hype it up, you kind of don't want to buy into the hype. And eventually, I sat down one day and just binge watched Lost. I lost 4 weeks of my life catching up on that.
Well, when you work hard like we do, I do have to do a little bit of brain turn off at night, and so we usually try to find one show that we watch, since that's Yellowstone was our show, and so we just got through it, and then I usually still have to read after that to really solidify that I'm turning off. So
that's my routine. It's like it decompresses my mind. Mm-hmm. Right now, super excited because the new Reacher season's out.
That's right.
It's such a great show.
Jack Reacher.
I love that show. I actually I worked with him at a Comic-Con.
Oh, wow.
Not too long ago. Super nice guy.
See, he's big. I'm not as big as you, but he's big, right?
Yeah. He's impressive.
Yeah.
Super disciplined guy.
Sure he is.
Like his personality always seemed like he was very disciplined in everything he does.
You cannot look like that or be that successful if you are not disciplined. Ever.
I didn't know he is talking about the show, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be in this show," and I was like, "Oh, okay," because I'd heard of that. It's a book series, and I'd seen the Tom Cruise films, and he's like, "Oh, they're doing a show about us." "Oh, well, who are you playing?" He goes, "I'm Reacher." And I'm like, "Of course you are." He's
duh.
Yeah, he's so. And then I saw the show. I knew him from the HBO Titan show because he was one of the superheroes. And I thought he was cool in that. And I thought, oh, that's cool. My niece knew him from Blue Mountain State, where he was a goofball football player. But then when I saw the show, I was like, man, I wish I'd have gotten to know that dude a little bit better. He was so cool.
So cool.
So cool. And so I'm excited about that show. But no, I agree. That's why I don't play video games anymore.
Yeah. It's just a time suck. I mean, I scroll Instagram with the best of them, and I have to really fight to be like, okay, you know what, we're done here. And it's almost embarrassing. If you have an iPhone, it tells you every week your weekly screen time is up or down. I feel embarrassed and ashamed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what else could I have been doing with my life? When my weekly screen time, it's terrible. But that it sucks you in, and it sucks all of us in, even the most disciplined person. I'm a pretty 100%. Disciplined person, and you go on there because you've got a friend who's traveling and you want to check in and see her travels, and before you know it, you've scrolled for 20 minutes on nonsense.
Yeah, it's quick how it gets you.
Oh, it's so quick, and it is just it's nonsense, and you have to really, really consciously fight that.
Do you think your careers would have been a little bit different, or even your life, if you'd had access to social media?
I think, first of all, I would have been in trouble because
same here.
I speak my mind, and it's not always appreciated. And there's a lot of good things that, all the people that are the Gen X's of the world are like, oh, thank God there was no social media, when I was in high school. So I do certainly feel that same way. And I'm also glad, though, that I'm not, addiction might be too strong of a word, but I think people that grew up with it are so, it's such a habit. And I think those of us that were fortunate enough to not have it since we were young, it's not built in as, habits really start when you're a kid. So many things about you are built in when you're a kid. You can fight them and change them, but it takes work. And, we didn't have that piece built in childhood, thankfully, because, I'm not sure I would have been as successful because it takes your time and your life watching other people's lives. Like, what are you doing? You're watching other people's lives? Why?
What's been the accomplishment you're most proud of?
Well, it's so cliche, to say your family, but I am really proud of my family, right? I very consciously, chose my husband. I wanted someone very successful and athletic, and we created 2 really amazing, successful children. And they have, there's always that argument of nature versus nurture. And there's a lot of genetics that goes into who you are, your personality, and then there's a lot of nurture. But I mean, parenting is hard, and it's work, and kids have to be raised. They have to be raised. I mean, you have to raise a puppy, right? I mean, why wouldn't you raise your children? Yeah. And it's work for 20 years per child, right? So I have 2 children. They're 5 years apart. So the way I look at that, it's 25 years of my life that they have to be your priority. Because they have to be your priority, and then you have to find a way that you balance that. I mean, I've always worked full time, several full times, and be able to find a way to be successful with that, and raise them well to be successful, right? And so I think my biggest accomplishment is that balance, being able to find a way to be personally and professionally successful while maintaining a healthy and successful family, because it's not luck. It's just, there's obviously, luck, life throws you different things. My kids are healthy. I've never had a bad health issue, obviously, but it's work.
You're pretty ambitious. When you became a mom, did life change? Did your perspective change? Did you make a conscious thought and go, man, this is not about me anymore?
Nope.
Lead by example.
I mean, it was just about both of us,
yeah.
Right? I mean, they were going to be, like I said, put first, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to not exist.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean,
because a lot of parents do put their kids first, and they live vicariously with their kids to the point where it's dangerous,
unhealthy, right?
Toxic,
right?
Yeah.
And again, finding that balance, because they watch you. You're right. Your children, they watch you, and they are going to be like you with you. A child's biggest influence is their same-sex parent. Every time, a child's biggest influence is their same-sex parent. And so parents need to understand that, and they are going to emulate you, particularly those that are of your same sex. And that's just been proven time and time again. And you have to know that and live your life accordingly. But let them fail. You can put them first, which is by putting them first. For me, it was, I have a very full plate. I wanted them to have a very full plate. And people are always like, oh, kids are overscheduled and yada, yada. Well, you know what? A downtime is the devil's playground. And, especially with boys. I've got 2 boys. You give them enough free time and it's trouble. It's strippers and cocaine. We are very, very quickly, we have a house full of strippers and cocaine.
I had 2 brothers. We were always outside doing something.
They're fires, strippers, and cocaine.
The day I discovered aerosol cans were flammable was the greatest day of my life.
And you want to have some of that, right? Because you want to have some creativity. I think that's really important. But I mean, again, it's a balance. And I also wanted to, my kids are successful in sports, but I really exposed them very early and worked on their coordination very early with, dance and gymnastics. I mean, they were in dance and gymnastics by 2.5 and 3 years old, and really developing that coordination. And then as soon as possible after that, I introduced them to, team sports and individual sports. My dad's a big golfer. He started my kids golfing. So they could have this experience and find out, again, where their gifts were, right? I mean, and we exposed them to piano and, and things that weren't always traditional boys sports. That's why they danced. So you, as parents, you have to help your child find that, or they'll just be playing video games and, scrolling Instagram. And they are not going to just magically find that for themselves. I have a lot of people say, gosh, Stacey, your kids are so talented, they're so successful. And I'm like, well, that didn't just happen because I'm lucky.
Yeah.
I made a conscious decision. I want my children to be successful and find a talent, a gift that they can own and find an identity.
Yeah.
Right? Because you see a lot of kids that are lost in high school because they never found their identity. Right. And that is a parent's job. Help your child find that identity, find where they belong, find what makes them feel good, find what they're interested in. They need help. They're children. They need help, and it's work. And there's just a lot of parents that they don't want to. They just don't have time. It's too much work.
Yeah.
You know, you can put them in front of the TV, you can put them in front of the iPad. You know, I got to go to work. I've got to do that. And it's just, again, you have to get up in the morning and figure out, like, I have all this to do today. Some of what I have to do today is make sure that I pick my child up at school at 3:45, and I have to get him to Brentwood Blaze football practice at 4:30. But then I'm still going to have work to do. So what am I going to do? So I'm going to leave work at 3:15. I'm going to get my kid 3:45, get him to Brentwood Blaze football practice, where we're fortunate enough that his father was his coach, right? So child's biggest influence, their same-sex parent. His father was always right there with them coaching. So then he's at football practice. So now I can drop him off. So now I'm going to circle back home, turn my computer back on, finish up the work that I have to do until 6. You make dinner, do my workout. When I was cheering, go to cheerleading practice, and be done at 11. Yeah. But I mean, I knew that was my plan, for the day. And part of that was I could have just, a lot of parents say, oh, well, my kid can't play football. I just can't get him there. Really? You can't figure it out?
Can't figure it out. I hate that. There's a way to figure it out.
There's always a way to figure it out.
Sometimes you got to walk away from it and come back, but there is a solution to everything.
There is. We had, let me tell you a flip house story. So my girlfriend and I are a flip house in Franklin. It's a pre-World War II house, built 1940. And we, paneling on the walls. I mean, like we gutted it to the studs. It's a beautiful, one of the original Franklin farmhouses. It's beautiful now. And so we kept a lot of that history. Well, we were pulling down drywall and paneling and like getting it down to the studs. And all of a sudden we unearthed a fireplace, a chimney in the middle of the house. Like the middle of, obviously it had not been used. They drywalled around it. And I mean, we're like, oh my God. Like we had a whole design and there's a chimney, stone brick, heavy chimney, fireplace. I mean, 25 feet high through the attic.
Wow.
We're like, okay, well, this has to go.
You didn't keep it?
We didn't. I mean, it was non-functional. I mean, there was no.
You had a plan.
We had to figure out. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to figure out a plan at that point. I mean, you have a panic attack.
Was it supporting the house?
It was not weight bearing. It was just
there.
It was just there. And if it was supporting, then you call your engineer and you find out what you do. If it's supporting, I mean, there's a solution. And and we called Estefan and said, Estefan, what's it going to cost to knock this all the way out? And he gave us the price. We said, okay, deal. Can you do it by Saturday? And he did it. But here's the other kicker. Your dumpsters won't take, FYI, house flippers out there, your dumpsters won't take stones and rocks and bricks because of the weight. So basically they put the whole fireplace on the back porch, just piled rocks. But then we were like, okay, now we don't have the fireplace inside, but now it's just in piles in the backyard. So then we had to do that. So my sons, my husband, my partner, her sons, put the bricks in bags, in construction bags, which you can only put a few in because it's so heavy, and took them one bag, one load at a time in the pickup truck to there's a dump that takes construction debris. And over the next 4 weeks, one bag at a time, we got those bricks gone.
It could have been just so easy just to give up and abandon it.
Or sell it to someone else, complain. Yeah. But I mean, we had to get rid of that chimney and we had to get rid of the rocks and the dumpster wouldn't take them. The dumpster people don't take that. And so you're like, okay, well, there's a place. So you look online. Okay, they take construction debris. So I have to get this pile of rocks from this house to this dump. I mean, who's going to do that for me? I mean, we're all going to do it. That's who's going to do it. We're all going to do it.
You don't seem to have a problem rolling your sleeves up and getting your hands dirty, which is awesome.
Well, that's just, I mean, you will always, maybe you don't become, a millionaire and a billionaire, but you'll be successful. You will not be poor. If you are just willing to work and get up every day and have discipline, have accountability, have personal responsibility, and have integrity, you'll be okay.
2 more questions. I'm going to wrap this up. Number 1, who do you want to be?
Let me see. I always tell people Nicole Arbor is my spirit animal. I think she's so funny. I love comedians. Oh my God. I love people that are funny and don't take themselves too seriously. I want to be, I've had a lot of success, but I'd like to be a little more compassionate. Like, my personality type doesn't lend itself to compassion as much as it should. And so I'd like to be a little bit, find a way to balance my ambition and my work ethic with some compassion. And then I'd like to be, on top of that, to be an inspiration without being braggy. That's another balance. A great Bill Vandiver quote, episode 1, anybody, is, and he's used it a lot, but I know he used it about me once when people were complaining about me. And he said, just because Stacy wants to be the best she can be doesn't mean she thinks she's better than you. And, I like that. And so, but I think sometimes you can come across as you think you're so good, you think you're better than everybody else when you're trying to just be the best you can be. And so finding that balance that it's, obvious I'm just trying to be the best I can be, but that doesn't mean I think I'm better than you. In fact, I want to inspire you. And so that's who I'd like to be.
I think you're well on your way, more than you realize.
Oh, thank you.
What's your, you've talked about hard work, and discipline, your 4 pillars. What's your advice, especially for those young ladies out there that are, trying to accomplish things, especially in today's world, where it's tough.
It's tough.
What's your advice?
Work, and particularly to women, always have a plan for yourself that does not revolve around a man, right? I am a big believer in a husband, and the nuclear family is absolutely the best way to success, because then you have 2 incomes, you have 2 people working under one roof toward the same goal, and you're probably, in most cases, just because that's the way the math works, going to be more successful if you have a good life partner with a husband, girls. But, you just never know what life is going to throw you. So, make sure you've got your own skill set. You've got your own way to make revenue, even if you're just focusing on being in the family right now. If you had to focus on something else, what would that be? And always, and never stop planning, never be complacent. I married well, we have a great house and a great family. And so, I'm just going to be complacent. I mean, have your purpose, right? Maybe my purpose is I'm going to be the room mother, and I'm going to be the best room mother there ever was. And, make sure these kids have an amazing time at school. But then remember too, well, that's going to end in middle school, right? And so then what are you going to be? How are you going to transfer that skill set? So just always be forward thinking and having that plan, from the time that you're a teenager. And your plan shouldn't be just, I want to find a great looking boyfriend and get a lot of likes on Instagram, because there's too many young girls that's as far as they get. I want to have a great looking boyfriend and a lot of likes on Instagram. And I'm going to do Instagram. I'm going to do makeup tutorials on Instagram, which, listen, there are people that are making a crap ton of money doing makeup tutorials on Instagram.
100%.
But that's work too. I've had a lot of people come to me, because I'm in marketing, and talk to me about, being an influencer. And I'm like, you have to work all day, every day with content. Your content, 8 hours a day. And then plan your content, and then post your content. It is a full-time job to be an influencer, because once your content dies, you die, and you have to have content every single day. Are you prepared for that?
Yeah. And
that's fine if you are.
Sure.
But like one makeup tutorial does not make you an influencer.
No. I'm sort of, I don't really have a marketing degree, but I do a lot of marketing, especially content creation. I do content creation, and I have this one. It's like, this is like, the content we create for this comic book store is like next to nothing, because it's like one of those things where it's like, oh man, I mow yards for a living. Do I have to go mowing yard? And the truth is I do, but it is so overwhelming. There's so much to think about. And there's so much going on out there. I tell my clients all the time, it's like, look, you're not just competing. When you're talking about social media marketing, you're not just competing with your competitors. You're competing with everything out there. There's just so much information. It's where do I start? Where do I digest? What's so important? It's like this podcast. There's a bazillion podcasts out there. What's going to make mine stand out? And it's getting in and finding out, finding the work, you just can't just post. I've learned 100%. You can't just put this together, edit it, throw it up on there, and hope people are going to listen to it. That's not how it works. There's got to be a strategy. There's lots of things that go into it. And it is overwhelming. It's
hard, but good for you for starting it. I mean, there's some people that want to, and they never have that episode 1 with Bill Vandiver. And
he was always going to be episode.
It's hard because you're like, well, what if no one listens? And you have all that self-doubt that comes in. And you know what? Again, that's when I say, you have to have courage, you have to have faith, you have to have will, right? And so you took your first step. You had courage. You're like, I'm just going to do it. And, what if no one listens? It's going to be great. Yep. And the 3 people that do listen, they're going to be the luckiest 3 people on earth.
Yeah. For those who've never actually had an opportunity to hang out with Bill, he's a great dude. He's a great guy.
He's the best. He's been such a help and supporter of mine. I mean, we go back so long, and
he's been there for you.
Oh,
when it was
God.
tough, you were with we didn't talk about much about your exit from the Titans, and it was kind of from what I understand, a little bit of a tough transition, and he was there for you.
He was there for me. Yeah. Mr. Adams died, and he and I were very, very close. He was our owner, for those of you who don't know Titans history. I was very fortunate to have a very close relationship with the owner, and his family took over, and my relationship with them was very different, to say the least. And that's how it goes when you're in a family-owned business, right? I mean, it's just how it goes. And but like I said, with anybody that leaves the NFL, it's difficult. Whether you're a front office person, you're a performer, you're an athlete, you're a coach, because it's unlike any other job. If you're in the NFL, the NBA, sports like that, your identity is just wrapped up in being that person. And you gotta be tough and find a new purpose. Find a new purpose.
Well, you're awesome.
You're awesome.
No, man, you're fantastic. It's been great. I'm so appreciative of you taking your time out today, especially here getting close to the holidays, to come down and hang out with me and have a cup of coffee and talk about.
Thank you.
And I feel like you and I could probably fill up a whole day full of conversations.
People get bored. Eventually, people get bored.
I don't think this is probably the last time I'll probably have you on the show. Get down the road a little bit, just because I feel like there's other things to unpack. And speaking of which, talk about some of your endeavors coming up. Talk about Camp Kinder. Talk about Kinder Sport. And we're going to get those in the description, those links, so that people can understand and or learn more about those, because those are some great opportunities for people who are trying to excel.
Absolutely. Our website is kindersportonline.org. It is a nonprofit. My husband's an Olympian. He was a college coach, and he works really hard with kids, particularly track and field athletes, who want to go to college. Right? It's a different training program. If you think I want to compete at a Division I, Division II collegiate level, then I just want to be on the high school team. And it is crafted for that. I mean, a lot of parents don't know about the recruiting process. As you know, as a college athlete, very different and difficult versus just applying and going to the guidance counselor.
It's different today. And guidance counselors don't always know exactly about athletic recruiting. I mean, and which is fine. They have to, guidance counselors are there for the 1,000 kids, not the few that are going to be college athletes, right? And my husband's fortunate enough that he knows, because he was a college coach and on the Olympic team. I mean, a lot of his friends and peers are coaching at colleges across the country. And, you can go on our website and see who we've placed from, Harvard to the University of Oregon to the University of Arkansas to the University of Tennessee, who we've had people on major track teams across the country. There's several members of Team USA, the under 20 Team USA, and very successful. I think you asked me about our Camp Kinder. I'm writing a little book called Cheerleader Millionaire. How I went to from $20 a game to $1 million real estate portfolio, just because, again, I think I hope I can get it out there. I've got a friend of mine's helping me with publication, but I just, especially as women, I want women to understand. Like, I literally went from $20 a game, cash. They gave you cash at the end of the game. Here's your 20. Thanks for coming out, jumping up and down with your pom poms. Yep.
And how you can ultimately end up with a pretty good net worth and real estate portfolio, and anybody can do it. Again, I really believe that anybody can do it if you have the steps, and it's just, we're not teaching people how money works and how to do that, particularly women. And I want women to know that you can do this. And so that's who we are. I have my 2 kids, Jet and Cannon. Jet goes to the University of Oregon, and Cannon goes to Brentwood High School. Go Bruins.
Wow, you named your kids after fireballs. Like, they're like things that are not stoppable.
I do.
That's pretty awesome. Well, Stacy, like I said, this has been a privilege for me, for sure.
And me.
And, I hope this is not the last time we have a conversation. I intend for it not to be. So I think you've got a lot to offer a lot of people out there, especially young people, young women, who are looking to make their mark in the world. I find that super important, So this conversation is super valuable. So for those of y'all who are out there listening, make sure you save this one. Be sure to subscribe and share this video because this is a good one. All right. And Stacey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody. All right.
Take care.
Take care.